On this Tuesday night, Donald Trump arraigned again.
I think it's going great.
The former U.S. president's court appearance and the parade of protesters and his supporters. Frustration for Alberta's fire evacuees.
I really want to go back home.
Why upcoming rainfall isn't expected to provide relief. Russia's deadly assault on the Ukrainian president's hometown as fears renew about Europe's largest nuclear power plant.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Neetu Garcha.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. History has been made in a Florida court. Former U.S. President Donald Trump made his first court appearance on federal criminal charges, and there was no shortage of support waiting outside. Trump pleaded not guilty to all 37 counts. He's accused of retaining and hiding classified documents after leaving the White House and then blocking government efforts to get them back.
We got a government that's out of control.
Trump remained defiant after leaving court, heading straight to a popular Cuban restaurant packed with supporters. He posed for pictures and even flashed a thumbs up. Our Jackson Proskow is in Miami tonight outside the courthouse. Jackson, today's hearing kicks off what will be a dramatic judicial process. What are Trump's supporters saying?
Well, Neetu, they're standing by him to the very end. They believe this is a witch hunt against him. They believe he has been unfairly targeted. And it's clear the former president very much plans to try this case in the court of public opinion. Outside the courthouse, Trump's supporters rallied in his defense.
Keep fighting for us. That's what I would tell them.
They came here from across Florida.
I go everywhere. Everywhere he is that I can go to, I will go.
Certain their political hero is falsely accused of dozens of federal crimes. Do you think he should have just given the documents back when he was asked to?
They're his documents. He's the only person in all the documents that is allowed to have any of those documents.
Trump arrived at the court with his alleged co-conspirator, his aide Walt Nauta, who is accused of helping the former president hide dozens of highly classified documents. After being fingerprinted and formally arrested, Trump's lawyer pled not guilty on behalf of his client to all 37 counts, as the former president sat stone-faced and silent. Special counsel Jack Smith was in the courtroom.
But as far as the charges, they are powerful. They are damning. The evidence is against them, but with someone as polarizing as Donald Trump, all you need is one juror to say, he's my guy, and I don't want him going to prison.
The indictment is centered around Trump's willful retention of national defense information after he left office, including 31 counts of possessing highly classified documents outlining U.S. nuclear secrets and foreign military capabilities. All of them were discovered in unsecured spaces at Trump's Florida resort, including a bathroom and a ballroom. The documents were found after Trump ignored a subpoena for their return.
He packed them up, he stored them away, he hid them, he told people to lie for him, he disseminated them, and now he's going to have to perhaps pay the price for it.
The former president has never faced greater legal liability. If convicted on all counts, he faces up to 100 years in prison. Outside the court, Trump supporters were clear they believe Trump will not only beat the justice system, he will win again.
This is complete nonsense, but the president is going to come out of it stronger.
There's still no formal schedule for a trial at this point. One of the conditions, though, of Trump's release today is that he not discuss the particulars of the case with any of the potential witnesses involved, and they're going to be drafting a list of those potential witnesses. Tonight, Trump is in the air, headed to his golf course in Bedminster, New Jersey, and his first order of business after his historic day in court will be a sit-down, a private meeting with his top donors as he seeks to capitalize on today's developments. Neetu?
All right, Jackson Proskow in Miami. Thanks, Jackson. In Ukraine, a Russian missile strike on Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's hometown has killed at least 11 people. The attack happened as the first independent footage was released showing Ukrainian troops liberating villages as part of Kyiv's counteroffensive. Russian President Vladimir Putin, however, claims Ukraine is paying a heavy price for its push to retake land. Redmond Shannon reports.
Exhaustion and despair, this time in Kryvyi Rih, the home city of President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Ukrainian authorities say those killed by Russian missiles were inside this apartment building and in non-military warehouses. Vladimir Putin insists Russia never targets civilians, but says Ukraine is paying a heavy price on the front lines. He claims a quarter of Kyiv's Western-supplied tanks and armoured vehicles have been destroyed since Ukraine's counter-offensive began.
They lost over 160 tanks and over 360 armoured vehicles of various types during this time.
Those numbers have not been verified. However, some of Ukraine's claims of retaking villages have now been independently confirmed. This footage from Reuters news agency shows the abandoned village of Neskushne in Donetsk region. To the west in Kherson region, 1 week on, and both sides continue to blame each other for the collapse of the Kakhovka Dam. This woman collecting drinking water calls it ecological warfare. Upriver from the dam, reservoir levels remain low. The head of Ukraine's state hydro company says the water level could even drop below a critical level, under which the Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant could no longer receive cooling water. In Kyiv, the head of the UN's nuclear watchdog sounded more concerned about the effects of the counter-offensive.
But I'm very concerned the possibilities of a hit. We had those without any counter-offensive, so all the more so now that we have all these combats in the area.
Rafael Grossi is en route to the site with a new team of observers, now looking to manage two threats to the safety of Europe's largest nuclear power plant. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
Police in the UK say a 31-year-old man is under arrest in connection with a crime spree that left multiple people dead in the English city of Nottingham.
Today, there has been a shocking and tragic series of events which has led to the lives of 3 innocent people being taken and left another member of the public in a critical condition in hospital.
Police say the attacks happened early this morning. 2 19-year-old university students were found stabbed to death in Nottingham's city centre. 3 others were found wounded nearby after a driver in a stolen van reportedly attempted to run them over. A man in his 50s was also later found fatally stabbed in a nearby street. Officials believe all 3 incidents are linked, but no motive has been determined. Turning now to the out-of-control wildfires raging across this country. With Canada already experiencing its worst wildfire season of the 21st century, officials' concerns are quickly shifting west. Strong winds, a patchwork of rainfall, and the potential of severe weather isn't expected to help in the coming days. And as this historic season drags on, crews on the ground are already feeling exhausted. Heather Yourex-West reports.
On the fire line near Edson, Alberta, crews are working day and night.
This right now is the biggest, largest threat in Alberta, and they have thrown, in the last few days, have thrown every resource at these fires. There's just too much at stake here.
The Pembina wildfire complex is more than 3 times the size of the city of Edmonton, with a finger of the fire a little more than a kilometre from the town of more than 8,000. Residents several days into their second evacuation of the spring.
I really want to go back home. I don't want to stay here anymore longer.
It's been bad. It's a very different year.
We've come into the summer season at quite a deficit with precipitation, and even a normal precipitation year for summer, and in particular June, won't be enough to make up for the deficit that we're in.
Environment and Climate Change Canada expects less rain than normal this June, not more. Over the fire zone in the coming days, precipitation will come in patches. Some areas will get a lot, others none at all. For the crews fighting the fires near BC's Tumbler Ridge, the weather has been helpful.
As a result, we do have structure protection equipment being demobilized as of this morning in anticipation of hopefully those evacuation orders and alerts can be reassessed.
But on Vancouver Island, less promising news. Last week, the Cameron Bluffs fire east of Port Alberni forced a critical highway on the island closed. Officials say it will remain that way for another week or more. Western Canada's worst fire season to date, with several long months to go. Heather Yourex-West, Global News.
The RCMP is investigating more than 100 files related to foreign interference, including 3 involving MPs. Interim Commissioner Michael Duhem and Deputy Commissioner Mark Flynn told a parliamentary committee the force is looking into allegations China targeted Conservatives Michael Chong and Aaron O'Toole, as well as New Democrat Jenny Kwan. Flynn says the RCMP has been in contact with election officials about the allegations, which he says Mounties first learned about through the media.
We have learned about specific individuals that were targeted through the public disclosure, not through other means, but through the public disclosure of specific individuals that have been targeted. And it is those matters that we reached out to the Commissioner of Canada Elections to offer our assistance if required.
The high-ranking officers say there should be better information sharing with both MPs and the public. The unprecedented departure of a justice on the Supreme Court of Canada is leading to calls for more transparency. Russell Brown resigned yesterday following accusations he was involved in a physical altercation at an Arizona hotel in January. The incident triggered a complaint to the Canadian Judicial Council. But as Kryvyi Rih reports, much of the legal process has remained under wraps.
Are you going to call this? Body cam video captured a low point for Canada's highest court. Police arrived at a hotel lobby in Arizona last January after this man called 911.
And he tried getting around me to the girls, and I punched him.
He was Supreme Court Justice Russell Brown. 5 months later, the confrontation has cost him his job.
It's the first time a justice of the Supreme Court of Canada has retired in the face of an inquiry into their conduct.
A group of friends staying at the hotel met Brown at the lounge and invited him over for a drink. They allege he started harassing the women at the table.
Super creepy.
What did it?
He said he was like touching my lower leg, just kind of like coming like. And I was just like, we're not doing. Yeah.
Police allege Brown tried following the women to their rooms. That's when their friends stepped in.
Kind of fought him a little bit. He ripped my shirt.
In the police report, officers found the use of force appeared reasonable and necessary. No crime was determined, no arrests made. Brown was placed on leave in February after Canada's Judicial Council received a complaint and started investigating. But that was never announced publicly and only came out after journalists noticed his absence. The council recommended a public inquiry into Brown's behavior, but he stepped down before it could even begin.
We take those questions seriously, the ethics of our judges.
In a statement, he says the allegations made against me are false, but I have decided that the common good is best served by my retirement. Canadians may never get a full explanation on what happened that night, since the Judicial Council plans to keep its findings secret.
There's something opaque right now, and I'm not comfortable with that.
Brown is from Alberta. The Prime Minister is expected to appoint someone from the West to replace him. Chief Justice Richard Wagner is urging the Prime Minister to make a decision before the Supreme Court starts hearing cases again in the fall. Kryvyi Rih, Global News, Ottawa.
The battle against a religious ban in Quebec. Coming up, the fight to allow prayer rooms in public schools. Civil liberties and Muslim groups are fighting a Quebec government ban on prayer rooms in schools. The groups were in court today asking a judge to suspend the ban ordered by the education minister. Mike Armstrong has the details.
This public high school in Laval was the spark. The administration had made a room available over the winter for Muslim students to pray. Prior to that, they'd been doing it in places like staircases and in the parking lot.
Que l'Assemblée nationale réitère.
Well, that accommodation came under fire in April in Quebec's National Assembly. A Parti Québécois member tabled a motion that in an officially secular province, prayer rooms don't belong in public schools. The motion passed unanimously. The education minister, 2 weeks later, issued this directive banning religious activity in schools. In a tweet, Bernard Drainville said he was preserving the secular character of schools, calling them places of learning, not places of worship.
This has no place in a country like Canada.
The National Council of Canadian Muslims is now challenging the directive, joined in its efforts by the Canadian Civil Liberties Association. They were in a Montreal courtroom Tuesday asking a judge to suspend the application of the directive. They say court challenges should be heard and ruled on before the ban is applied. That said, it's already in effect. The prayer room at this school has been taken away. The groups fighting the ban say they've heard stories from schools where children are being told to hide while they pray. One was mocked by a teacher for praying, and another one was threatened with discipline if they were seen praying.
This has become a total prohibition on prayers in school, and we are here to challenge that.
Now, the directive builds on Quebec's controversial secularism law. It bans provincial employees in positions of authority from wearing religious symbols. That includes teachers. It does lead to ironic twists on occasion, like at the high school in Laval. It was once a Catholic school and still has its cross. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
This next story is what nightmares are made of. A woman declared dead and placed inside a coffin after suffering a possible stroke woke up during her own wake. It happened in Ecuador last week. The 76-year-old woman started knocking on her coffin 5 hours into the funeral. When they opened the lid, they found out she was actually alive and breathing heavily. A government investigation is now underway. The woman was taken back to hospital and is in intensive care. Still ahead, author Cormac McCarthy, a titan of American literature, dies at 89. Emergency relief camps are beginning to fill up in parts of northwestern India as the region braces for its first cyclone of the year. Officials say the powerful storm could slam ashore as early as Thursday. Neighboring Pakistan is also working to relocate thousands from several coastal communities ahead of the storm. India's meteorological department says the cyclone is already packing winds of 180 kilometers per hour. American Pulitzer Prize-winning author Cormac McCarthy has died at the age of 89. A statement from McCarthy's publisher, Penguin Random House, confirmed the novelist died of natural causes at his home in Santa Fe, New Mexico. The writer was best known for his vengeful and violent tales of the American frontier and post-apocalyptic worlds. Mike Drolet reports.
It must have been terrifying for even Oprah to sit down with Cormac McCarthy. He was a writer's writer, a recluse. Their TV interview was his first, and often when he spoke, his thoughts tended towards the cerebral, like the role the subconscious plays in our lives.
Somewhere in my head, someone's making up the next thing I'm going to say, which I don't even know what it is yet.
He spent years in poverty, and his novels captured hardship, darkness, violence, but they were beautifully written, lean, unflinching looks at humanity's underbelly, disguised as poetry. His imagination gave us Anton Chigurh, the relentless hitman moving through No Country for Old Men. More unstoppable force than mere man. No backstory, no explanation for his brutality.
Do you have any idea how crazy you are?
You mean the nature of this conversation?
I mean the nature of you.
While his stories were often adapted for the screen, McCarthy kept a low profile, famously never promoting his novels or giving public readings, his singular focus on the prose that served as the heartbeat to his writing. He was so dedicated to his craft, he missed the birth of his first son so he could write.
There ain't but one truth. Truth is what happened. It ain't what come out of somebody's mouth.
His first novels were well received, but failed to sell. The romantic western All the Pretty Horses led off a string of hits that included the post-apocalyptic novel The Road.
You ain't got but 2 shells, maybe 1. And now here's shot.
Maybe, but you won't.
Loss, suffering, bloodshed, and fate, all in one short scene. McCarthy was perhaps the greatest novelist of his generation, an original voice who left it all on the printed page, for better or worse.
You're just here once, life is brief, and to have to spend every day of it doing what somebody else wants you to do is not the way to live it. And I don't have any advice for anybody on how to go about that, except if you're really dedicated, you can probably do it.
Cormac McCarthy was 89.
All 13 Canadian Nordstrom stores are shutting down for good today. In March, the luxury U.S. retailer announced it was pulling out of the Canadian market, saying it didn't think it would ever be profitable. About 2,500 people are losing their jobs. Canada's first Nordstrom store opened in Calgary in 2014.